lux clara, umbrae cadunt, silenti prelium.
The ground was still red. Days had passed since the last battle, but the soil hadn't forgotten. The wind carried the scent of ash and iron, and no matter how many shovels scraped the earth, it never came clean. But war doesn't wait for clean. The commander stood above the southern camp, eyes locked on the horizon where the hills bent slightly. Not high enough to be mountains, but just enough to hide another army behind them. He knew what came next. The scouts had already confirmed it. Another force was gathering, this time larger. More organized, Britannia would not strike alone again. Word had come of a tribal coalition, barbarians unified by hatred and opportunity, smelling weakness like wolves in the dark. They would strike soon, and this time it wouldn't be a test. It would be war, but Rome would be ready. "We don't have enough grain," said Flavia. The logistics officer was squinting at the supply manifest, like it might change if he stared hard enough. "If they delay us another week, we'll be feeding soldiers with prayer and black bark." The commander didn't respond. He was already calculating. They'd lost 2 grannies in the last raid. One in the east had been sabotaged. Fire set in the night by someone wearing a Roman cloak. Saboteurs, traitors even now, with the front line shifted. There were enemies within. "Move the rations from the delta," the commander said. "Strip the civilian reserves. Leave just enough to keep them calm. And the merchants, they'll complain. Let them raise their taxes. This is no longer a trade route. This is a war zone." Flavian hesitated, but nodded. Supply was always the first problem. Every arrow fired had to be replaced. Every shield shattered had to be reforged. Every horse fed, watered, and trained. The soldiers themselves, they needed food, sleep, direction, something to believe in. Not everyone bled on the field. Most bled slowly, through sacrifice. He turned to the tactician's table, where maps were being marked and unmarked, plans drawn and redrawn. The camp had begun expanding, wooden palisades now being reinforced with stone. 4 new watchtowers, 2 more signal pyres. Pit traps were being dug along the western trail, not to stop the enemy, but to buy time. The 2nd and 5th cohorts were being rotated to the front. They'd barely recovered, but there was no time. The 3rd was stationed to hold the left ridge, guarding a shallow river crossing where the terrain narrowed. If the enemy came through there, they'd be vulnerable to a countercharge, but only if the timing was perfect, and timing had become a luxury. The commander moved his hand over the map. His fingers stopped at a choke point labeled in faded ink, Cali's Hollow, a narrow canyon. 1 road in, 1 road out. A perfect kill zone if baited correctly. He could already see it in his mind. Use the cavalry as a false retreat. Draw them in. Collapse the ridges. Fire from above. Spears below. Seal it in blood. It could work. It had to work. Because if this one broke, if this next battle failed, there would be no third. The empire was stretched thin. The economy strained like a cracked bridge, barely holding under the weight of constant levies and supply drains. The merchants were hoarding coin. The governors in the east were writing letters instead of sending men. Morale flickered like a dying torch. And still the barbarians came. Still Britannia pressed bolder now, more confident. Each victory gave them new allies. The next fight would decide the tempo of the war. The commander looked out again toward the hills. "Double patrols tonight," he said, "and send word to the engineers. I want another trench dug along the inner ring, reinforced, spiked. I want them to feel the cost of every step." He turned and walked away without waiting for a reply. The plans were set. The men were preparing. The supplies were moving. And still, in the back of his mind, he knew all of it might not be enough. But Rome does not wait to feel ready. Rome moves when it must, and it was time to move.
9 to 10, -18, -01, -25, -26. Classification. Level Omega. Epoch Threat Code. Victoria FNFTU. Delta Fund ID Tish. Lost History. Archive Access. Commander clearance required.